Identity protection and cybersecurity in 2019. Today on Live Now. Hello and welcome to Live Now, the info show for technology and trends. My name is Ben Friedman, and today on the show, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and identity protection with Marie Taylor from CyberScout. Marie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I know you at CyberScout deal with both enterprise and consumer sort of customers. Let's talk about consumers first.
Sure.
What sort of trends are you seeing in 2019 that consumers need to be aware of?
Well, I think the biggest trends that we're seeing are still about ransomware and phishing. So those are two ways that that hackers can try to entice you to give them your personal information, then would give them access to everything about you. So phishing, for example, that might be one of those emails that you get that looks like it comes from your bank, but it's really not. And they're getting so sophisticated with those. Sometimes it's really hard to tell the difference. You click a link in an email and it takes you directly to some place where you would have to say, enter your login credentials or other information about yourself. That data is then swept by the hackers and can be used for a variety of purposes. Ransomware is really about taking that to the next level and using that information to then hold your personal data hostage. So that could be anything from your precious family photos, maybe your financial records, any of those type of pieces of information that would be valuable to you and hard to replace. A lot of times, when we think of ransomware, you think of like really expensive ransomware events that happen to businesses, but consumers are also a target. They're kind of low-hanging fruit. And we're not talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. We're talking about maybe $150 to $200 that somebody is holding that information hostage for you.
It really amazes me. I consider myself fairly tech savvy, but I do get phishing scam emails,
absolutely.
Sometimes phone calls, sometimes websites that look like look like the bank that I'm going to or the credit card company, and they are so close to the original one. It can be very difficult to tell the difference.
It is. So one of the things that we recommend is when you get an email and you're just not sure, go through your normal contact channel. So whether that's a phone number that's on the back of your credit card from your financial institution or the number that's on your ID card for your insurance company, whatever that might be, go with that normal contact channel. If you're on the phone with a service representative and they tell you that email is legitimate and you need to follow that process, then you're okay to follow it. But if you at all suspect that it seems a little odd, then, go with what you know.
Do you ever see it where in the phishing email, there is a phone number to call and, it says Bank of America phone number, but it's not. It's the phishing people's phone number. And if you call them, they'll actually, not only will the email pretend to be them, but when you call them, there's some guy at the other end pretending to be the bank. Does that happen?
It could very well happen. In fact, it actually, personal situation with my parents. My parents are older. And
why does this always happen to parents?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I think, it's like as like technology keeps zooming by faster and faster and, they're at a time in their life where, maybe things aren't moving as fast perhaps, but it was ironic because it was an email that came to me for, a card that I don't have, but I know that they did. And I just kind of was like, if you get this email, it's not legitimate. You need to contact your credit card company directly and contact the number on the back of your card. That's the number that that works.
Right. So let's switch over to the enterprise things.
Sure.
From an enterprise point of view, if you're running a business or a corporation in 2019, what are the top things that you need to be thinking about? Well,
there's a couple of things. So I think first and primary, those same type of instances, like we have a ransomware or phishing, we experience those on the enterprise side. So phishing attempts really turn into what they call business email compromise. And so, so that's instances where somebody masks an email, say from your CEO or your CFO, asking you to say wire money somewhere. And it looks so legitimate that the person who is just doing their regular job proceeds. Or maybe it's kind of, more of a pricklier, sharper email from somebody in charge that is asking you to sidestep your normal process. And so, the employee ends up doing that because they want to deliver and they want to do what they're supposed to do. And inevitably that ask wasn't coming from the person that it looked like it was. So there's a couple of things. Employee training, I think, is really key. So, and holding to that standard. So meaning that, hey, when we ask you to transition money or we ask you to wire money somewhere, for example, it's always going to work like this. If it doesn't work like this, you need to physically have a conversation with a real person about it before you do it. also training the employees to look for things in email that might not look appropriate. So maybe this time, maybe your CEO always has a formal first name. So maybe it's Jonathan rather than John, but you get this email and all of a sudden the email has been shortened to John at blah, blah, blah.com or whatever. It's always a good indicator that maybe everything looks legit except for this one thing. You can kind of hear the record scratch.
Right.
And maybe you need to go
Like
take another
sometimes
step.
if like the name's in all caps.
Yes.
Have you seen that?
Yep.
It's like, hi, Ben. And it's like, or, that's kind of a trigger right there where, why would somebody send me an email, but all of a sudden my name is in all caps?
Or it looks like it's, it's even in that kind of like vernacular or speak that person uses, but it's not coming directly from a corporate email. Particularly with smaller firms, that can happen. Oftentimes you might have that mix of business and personal use, but if you're just not sure, always pick up the phone and ask.
Talking about ransomware for enterprises, it's one thing, I guess, for consumers, but for enterprises, a lot of people think that, I'm going to, get a ransomware against some company, a big company, Lowe's or Home Depot or Apple or something like that, and we can ask for millions of dollars. When somebody asks for a lot of money, there's a lot of thought given, but what if somebody's just asking for a little money? What if they ask for $200, $500? Is there some incentive on the company's part to just say, this is not worth me dealing with this, I'm just going to pay it and get the thing back? But of course, then that shows that it works, it encourages more. I mean, what do you advise to a company who is being targeted, but just for a small amount of money, such that it's just an inconvenience for them? They might rather pay it. Would you tell them to pay it?
So I think every circumstance is different. And we've got a lot of qualified people at CyberScout, much smarter than me, that help businesses decide that every day. But what I would say is there's a number of safeguards that businesses can do even before they get that ransomware event happening. And one of the primary things they can do is have a good offsite backup and storage provider. So even if you get that ransomware note, for example, and everything you have is backed up and stored securely, that really kind of lessens that threat a little bit for the business owner. And, it is truly, to your point, the little guys that get impacted much more than, say, those large entities like Home Depot or Lowe's or Sony. And so, it's just as impactful to them as at $200 as it would be to a large entity at $5 million. So backup and storage, I think, is absolutely key. The other part of it is it's a little bit difficult with an enterprise because if you've got data that is customer related, now you have a responsibility to protect it. And so, it's a really tough call. Do you pay it? Do you not? And so definitely you need to have somebody in your corner to help you unwind that mess and make a determination about what's best for your business and the customer data that you hold.
These are digital attacks that we're talking about, but I know there were a couple of high profile analog attacks where someone may actually call you on the phone, pretending to be your bank, pretending to be your, hi, this is so-and-so from Facebook. Well, we've noticed there's been a hack into your account. Can you confirm your password? And then some poor willing person, maybe they're on the lookout for a digital attack, but they're not really thinking to be prepared for someone just calling them on the phone. They say, oh yeah, I don't want my account to be hacked, here's my password, and boom, now you've given your password to someone else. Have you seen that sort of thing?
I think most often the ones that we've heard about the last couple of years is really about the IRS, right? So particularly this time of year, or shortly after filing season, you'll hear kind of an uptick in people getting those random phone calls that are allegedly from the IRS making a demand for payment. So I think
I've gotten one, I think, that says, we're about to refer your case to the criminal justice system or something, and let you call today.
Or, very commonly you'll get some kind of tech support call. They'll either say they're from Microsoft or they'll say they're from Apple or somebody. And so I think, again, it's important to stop and take a beat for a minute. So certainly, like, if you get a phone call from the IRS, that just makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to be compliant.
Maybe you want to be a hacker.
Right.
Maybe it's better to be a hacker than an actual call from the IRS.
Exactly. And I think what's probably most important is that if there's truly a problem, I think it's okay to take a beat, right? So if there's this huge sense of urgency, it's like, let's keep in mind your house isn't on fire. To your knowledge, nobody's ill or dying, right? So if you get that phone call and you're just not sure, I think it's best to say, I need to call you back. And then you can go through the proper channels with that entity. So for example, with the IRS, they've got it peppered all over their website in a variety of places. They would never outbound call. in that way to make a demand for payment. They have, documented communication channels, for example. Microsoft tends to not outbound call you for support or, virus type of issues. So I think it's really just important to like take that breath for a minute and say, wait, does this sound legitimate?
So let's say that all of these great preventative measures don't work. You do get hacked. There is some sort of a problem, especially for enterprise. What's the next step? What do you do when you've realized something's gone wrong?
So I think once you realize that something's gone wrong, there's a couple of things. For first off, data breach and cyber insurance are pretty prevalent in the commercial insurance industry. So determine if you have coverage for that. The purpose of that policy is really to help you understand, help you kind of offset some of those expenses with having to notify individuals and all of that. I would say before that, you need to get with somebody that you trust that has experience in that area to help you understand what your obligations are. Also, if you know where the leak is coming from, shut it off clearly, right? So, but by and large, you need to make sure that you take care of those victims. And so you need to have a trusted entity in your corner to help you navigate through that.
And really, that's probably, I think, the biggest thing that I suggest people look at Cyber Scout to is,
Right.
You guys deal with this every day.
Absolutely.
And so, you know the process to go through, you know what people should expect, you know what the steps need to be. So if someone has been hacked or has suffered some sort of a loss, rather than guessing the quickest, fastest, easiest
Right.
way to make things better, they can go to a company like Cyber Scout, and because you do this day in and day out,
Absolutely.
you know that path you can walk people through to not only minimize and mitigate any damage, but maybe prevent it happening again?
Absolutely. So, our founder and chairman, Adam Levin, coined a phrase that said, data breaches are the third certainty in life. And so prevention is probably something that never quite will happen, but you can certainly learn how to monitor and manage things better and then have somebody great in your corner to help mitigate if there's a problem. And so, yes, to your point, a trusted entity like Cyber Scout is the best way to go.
Maria, I think we'll wrap it up there. There's certainly a lot of for people to think about there, and a lot for people to maybe digest and consider where their current level of awareness is on these issues. But thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I was glad to be here.
That's all the time we have for today, but thank you for watching. Give us a like if you like this video, or hit the button to subscribe, and we will see you next time on Live Now.